You didn't mention that nowhere Imam say that after me you can ask me and I can answer you. But we have heard, I have heard from the lecture that Imam was talking to people who passed away, the graveyard. I don't know if it is authentic or not. And he told the companions that they can hear better than you. And also there's a quote from Holy Quran that those who have been martyred or passed away are indeed alive and they do get sustenance. So now where can you throw some light on it? Uh, Thank you.
Okay, Jazakallah for your question. With regard to whether those who have left this world, can they hear us or can they not? So there is a very clear verse of the Quran about this in Surah Fatir, chapter 35, verse 22, where Allah addressing the Prophet, He's not even addressing us here, addressing the Prophet, He says, وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِعٍ مَنْ فِي الْقُبُورِ. O Prophet, you cannot make those who are in the grave listen to you. You don't have the power to make those who are in the graves listen to you. Now, when this verse is presented, many people try to say that, well, it's metaphorical. And it is true. The meaning of the verse is metaphorical in the sense that Allah is trying to compare the kuffar who are alive to the people who are dead. And Allah is saying that just as the people in the graves cannot listen to the message and benefit from it, these kuffar who are alive, they might be alive and they might be hearing on the face of it, but in reality, they are as dead as those in the grave. So they say this is a metaphorical verse. And our response is that according to the rules of Arabic, every metaphor is supposed to have a literal truth that it is based on. Okay, so in Arabic, you are not allowed to say you are as brave as a mouse or as brave as a rat. Nor are you allowed to say you are as coward as a lion. This metaphor does not work. Now you might say, well, it's a metaphor, it's not literal. Even if it's not literal, it has to be based on something that is literally true. So if a lion were to be cowardly, if the lion was a cowardly animal in real life, then the metaphor would work. If you were to say you are as cowardly as a lion. But because the lion in real life is very brave or is known for bravery, you cannot say you are as cowardly as a lion. Okay. In the same way, this verse of the Quran, when Allah is telling the Holy Prophet, وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِعٍ مَنْ فِي الْقُبُورِ, you cannot make those who are in the graves listen to your voice or hear or benefit from your message. If those who are really in the graves could listen to the Prophet's voice and benefit from his guidance, the whole metaphor would collapse. Because what is Allah? Understand what Allah is trying to say. Allah is trying to tell the Prophet that it is futile and meaningless to preach and propagate the truth in this crowd of kuffar and mushrikeen. These people are spiritually dead. And they are as good as those who are physically dead in terms of their inability to benefit from guidance. So if in reality the Prophet could speak to the people in the grave and benefit them, then that would be like Allah telling the Prophet that, oh Prophet, you cannot make the living hear. Would that metaphor work? Or you cannot make the hearing hear. Would that metaphor work? Or you cannot make the seeing, those people who have the gift of sight, you cannot make them see. Would that work? It wouldn't. Because a person who has sight can see. So that's why the Quran says, إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الصُّمَّ الدُّعَاء. You cannot make the deaf hear. Those who are spiritually deaf, the Quran is talking about here. But essentially, what we're trying to say is that every metaphor of this kind has to be based on a literal truth. And the literal truth in this verse is وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِعٍ مَنْ فِي الْقُبُورِ. So what Allah has done is He has taken the reality. The reality is the Prophet cannot make those who are in the grave listen to his voice. And because he cannot make them listen to his voice, Allah is now taking the living kuffar and He's drawing a parallel between them and those who are sleeping in the graves. And He's saying, Ya Rasulullah, just as you cannot make those people listen, you can also not make these people listen. So the natija, the conclusion is, the Prophet cannot make those who are in the graves listen. Now, as for the we dismiss on grounds of their contradicting this clear and explicit verse of the Quran. And this is not the only verse of its kind. This is an idea that's repeated in other places in the Quran where Allah tells His Prophet that, Ya Ya Rasulullah, innaka la tusmi'ul mauta. You cannot make the dead hear your voice.